Hi, welcome everyone. In today's video, I'm going to show you my process for making the Barbershop station. That's what I'm going to call it. I'm not really sure what you would call this, but it's a little desk where they keep all of their scissors and little bottles and things like that. I usually start out by drawing what I've got in my mind with measurements on my graph paper, because usually I'll put that into my silhouette cutting machine and cut it out. But in this case, I started to think there's so many little pieces that usually I can put all the pieces into the silhouette first and then just cut them as I go. But not this time. There's so many pieces. So I think I'm just going to have to take it section by section and make my pieces as I go and cut them. I thought that it would be good to attach everything to this base, so that base is the exact width and height of the back of the Barber Station. I'm starting out by cutting these strips that are the decorative sides of the mirror. I'm going to be creating a layered look on the top and bottom of that strip. I looked at a lot of vintage photos of old barber shops. I noticed they use a lot of very ornate trims and things for their mirrors and pieces of furniture. I'm going to be cutting various widths of that strip of cardstock to create that layered look. So to make that process go quicker, in the beginning I went ahead and cut several strips of that cardstock so that all I had to do was trim it to the height that I needed. I didn't have to do a lot of measuring. I just had to use my sketch on the graph paper to kind of follow to get an idea of how high I wanted them to be. I layered them on top of each other, and I kept the top edge even with the top of the previous layer. And then I used my ruler just to make sure that I was keeping it all straight. I was really excited to start this project, but at the same time I was a little nervous because all the pictures that I looked at were so ornate that I didn't know if I would be able to achieve that with paper. I really love the challenge of trying to create everything out of paper, but at the same time, I'm sure I'm going to run across something I can't make. Here's how all those layers look glued down. I think it looks a lot like the look that I was trying to go for. I'm going to use some crochet thread that I stiffened with some glue, and I'm going to add strips of it between each section to give it a little bit more detail. If I was working in 1/12 scale instead of 1/16 scale, I could have just used some thin strips of cardstock to achieve the same thing possibly. Now that the glue is dry, I can get a better idea of how it looks. I created this large decorative piece that will be a part of the mirror that's in the middle. I'm just going to be gluing this mirror on. So first I made like a frame, and then I had to incorporate that top part into the frame to be the backing. I also created a overlay that would give it some interest and fool your eye into thinking you were looking at something that was maybe carved. I have to admit I really wasn't very happy with that overlay, but I was just gonna think about it for a while and see what happened. And on the back of this mirror, I had to glue a few layers of that decorative piece that goes beyond the base so that when I glued it down, it didn't leave a gap. Here's a view of that piece from the back and how it's just resting on the base. I started to work on the top decorative piece above each one of the side mirrors. I'm using a little strip of foam board so that I didn't have to glue several layers of cardstock together to get it to the thickness that I needed. And then I covered the foam board piece with cardstock on all three sides. I glued a few strips of cardstock together, and then I cut them just in random shapes, try to keep them roughly the same, and I'm gluing them to the front of that piece to help give it some more detail. More ways to trick your eye to think that it's looking at carved wood. It looks tedious, but it really wasn't, because all I did was just cut off some random squares. I didn't worry to make all the shapes match up. This little piece of cardstock is kind of like a little shelf that goes on top of the decorative pieces that I already made and gives me something to glue that decorative piece onto. Just a little bit more interest again. I glued a little piece on top of that too, and then for the other side I did it the same, but for some reason I did it all in my hand. So I glued the little shelf to the top and bottom of the foam piece, and then I added it to the mirror. So far, I'm really very happy with the way the side mirrors are turning out. I'm also still thinking about a way that I can change up that middle mirror, the decorative piece on top. I'm still not happy with it. I stiffened some crochet thread with glue, and I glued it around the mirror opening. Okay, I couldn't stand that overlay piece anymore on that mirror. So what I did was I peeled it all off. I made another little piece that I'm going to try in here and see how I like it. If I don't, I can always just cut it all out again and try again. While creating this piece, I also created the pieces that would go above each one of the side mirrors. So I feel like they're going to tie in better and match a lot better than that overlay that I had before. Instead of the overlay being raised on the sides, this one is raised in the center, and I thought it gave it more of a carved wood look. I also created another little overlay that goes over that really ties in well with the side mirrors. And then there's this little tiny teardrop shape that you can barely tell it's there, but I just had to put it. I think this mirror looks prettier now too. I assembled the other pieces for the side mirrors. These are a little bit more trickier to attach, I feel, because I didn't want them to sit all the way back against the wall, but I didn't want them on the front edge either. So what I did was I took a piece of foam board, I laid it next to the edge, and then I laid the piece on top of that, and I was happy with the distance between the front and the back, so I went ahead and glued them on in place there, but I had to make sure I didn't glue it down to the foam board. I'm so happy with how this turned out, and now that to me was the hardest part, and now I just need to worry about the lower section of the Barber Station. While looking at the barbershop pictures, the old barbershop pictures, I kept seeing at the bottom of some of the cabinets, it looked like they had a little bin, and I'm thinking that must be where they put the dirty towels when they were finished, kind of like a built-in hamper. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. So that's what this little piece is going to be. I'm creating like a little hamper. I'm going to make it have working drawers, and I'm going to try to give it a working door for the hamper. I need to make this lower part of the Barber Station tie in with the mirrors on the top half. I need to take some of the design elements from the top and work that into the bottom too. I think the easiest way for me to achieve that would be to use this decorative bar like I put on each side of the mirror. Originally, I was just going to do the layered element that's on the top and not do the bottom part of it. But after I did just the top, it really looked like the bottom needed to have that layered look too. So I went ahead and added that layered decorative look. And I also added in the string as well. The top part of the layered area looked like it needed something, like maybe a circle. I have a little jar that's full of circles and things that have been punched out that I just hung on to that could be used to add a little bit of detail to a piece. I went ahead and added it to the top half of the Barber Station too. I think the top and the bottom really go well together now. The hamper section isn't glued on yet, but this really gives you an idea of how it looks so far. When I made my drawers, I was hoping that all I would have to do is just run that one centerpiece down, but I realized that the drawer kind of wobbles in there, so I had to add the extra side pieces in so that it would keep it in a straight line when you pushed it in and out. I was lucky on the second half of this lower section that I was able to modify it so I didn't have to create a completely different piece. That was a really big time saver too. So this side is going to have a top drawer and a big bottom drawer, but that middle section, it's going to just be a shelf area. I'm planning to maybe put some folded towels in there. And now the two lower cabinets are finished, or almost finished, so now I can work on the drawers. And I need to sand the top of the drawers. I don't want to sand much on the bottom, but I need to sand on the top of the drawers to help them slide in and out of the openings easier. Before I start painting, I need to completely cover this back piece or the base piece and the cabinets with Mod Podge. I painted the back with Mod Podge as well. I'm base coating all of the pieces with a light tan color first, and then I'm going to water down some light brown terracotta type color and do a wash over the tan And once all of the pieces were completely dry, I made a wash of brown paint, and then I applied that over all of the pieces. And when that wash was dry, I decided where I wanted to place it on my wall, and I glued it in place. Then I take that frame that goes in the center and I glued it in place. The majority of the old barbershop pictures that I looked at used a dark wood, or at least it looked dark in the black and white photos. And if they had wainscoting, they also had it dark as well, or they used white. But I didn't want everything to be dark, so I chose to go with this lighter color, and I'm glad that I did. And at this point, I really wish that I would have glued the mirrors in first, especially the one in the center, because it just would have been easier to press it in instead of waiting till I had all of these pieces glued on. And now I can finally add the rest of the wainscoting onto this wall. I saw a really neat idea on Pinterest to make drawer pulls using googly eyes. So you cut them in half and then you can paint them to look like drawer pulls. I did notice that you don't want to use a really strong tape when you paint them. Be very careful when you pull them off of your tape, because I had the backing come off of one of mine, but it was easy to glue back on. I really love the way they turned out, and I will definitely make some more. For my mirrors, I just used shiny scrapbook paper. I thought I was being super careful, and I even used a soft cloth to really press it down, but I noticed that in certain directions you look at it, there are little small scratches. I think I only noticed them because I know they're there. And then I made these little countertops, and I tried to paint them to look like marble or granite. So from a distance it kind of looks like marble or granite, I think. I forgot to mention, but I am very thankful that I did not glue this wall down. This is the bathhouse wall, the other side of it. But I'm glad I didn't glue it down, because this made it easier for me to glue this whole station to the wall. I ended up not making the little door for the laundry hamper. I'll add that later when I have some dirty towels or something hanging out of it. I'm not going to make it working after all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.